Attention navigates us safely through life. We couldn't survive without it, but it is so much more than this. Attention is actually the thread that connects us to life. It is so much more than a cognitive ability. It is a mechanism through which everything important in life flows. Think of it this way. You cannot give care, you cannot receive care if you aren't first paying attention. You can't give gratitude for the beauty of the day if you are not first paying attention. It's the thread that connects us to life, and it can turn our lives from being something that's being played out in black and white to something that appears in absolute full colour. It's so powerful. I know I'm speaking to a converted audience here. We know how powerful attention is. But I want you to consider this question. If it's so powerful, if it's free, if it's at our fingertips, then why aren't we harnessing this power? Because the research on this is clear. Harvard University, 47% of the time we are absolutely lost in thought, disconnected, out of the moment. Our body is doing one thing, our mind's in another place. We are disconnected, we can't see what's just going on straight in front of us. Again, we don't need the research because for a bit of audience participation, who has ever arrived at their destination by car with little recollection of the journey? Give me a show of hands. Common experience. Who's ever met someone 2 minutes later, no idea what their name is? Again, a show of hands. What about walking into a room and then going, I've got no idea why I came here? These are all things that we laugh about, and I laugh about myself every day, but we've gotten to a point in history where it's no longer a laughing matter. What do you think it is? Because attention is now the most threatened resource on the planet. It's being misused and abused more than ever before. You've had this experience that if you've ever had a chat on the phone while you're replying to an email, or perhaps sat in a meeting while rerunning the events of last week, then you're a culprit. But we are all culprits, and it's having its effect at both a personal and a global level. On the personal level, we're feeling disconnected from others. We're living lives that are full of activity, but lacking meaning. On a global level, we're seeing skyrocketing rates of depression, anxiety, even starting as low as 7 years old. We're at war with each other. We're at war with the natural environment. All of these things are a consequence of a world that has stopped paying attention and paying attention to the right things. Perhaps it's not a new problem because we have had warnings throughout times. Check this one out. 1st century AD by the philosopher Seneca. The abundance of books is distraction. Imagine if he was here in the modern world where each day, on average, we are receiving the equivalent content of 174 newspapers. Distraction much? And then we hear from an economist, Herbert Simon, 1971, a wealth of information creates a poverty of attention. There is no doubt that in today's time, it's unprecedented. The information we receive, we're required to juggle the sources of information, the mechanisms that we juggle it through. It is unprecedented. And we've got something to thank for that. You might call them mobile devices, we call them attention muggers, because they sit in your pocket, they disguise themselves like they're a friend, but they sit in your pocket ready to pounce whenever there's a moment of idleness. And we all know that the idle, the times where you can just stop, do nothing, totally undervalued. But you look in a bank queue or at a bus stop, the first thing people do is pull out the mobile phone. I can understand why, because there are so many conveniences that have come from mobile phones. We can have any information we want at our fingertips. We don't have to wait. So, you know, for example, she's got a new boyfriend. Don't wait to meet him. Check him out on Facebook and get to know him better and see if he's got a Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram account. We can check him out. We don't have to meet him. Things like the weather. Don't wait and see what the weather's like in the morning. We can look it up. A song. Who comes from the day where if you liked a song, you waited for the album to be released? These days, you like the song, download it straight away. So as I said, there's so many conveniences with technology, but what consequence is there when the average person has to deal with upward of 150 emails each day? What consequence is there When we're at a weekend sport and that moment that our child looks up to get that reassuring nod of approval, our heads down in mobile technology. What consequence is there in the world when we now have better access to mobile phones than we do to working toilets? Just crazy. The other thing that these things have done is given rise to a new breed called the attention thief. Who thinks they already know one? Someone who has no regard for what you're doing at the time. They elevate their own interest to share. So you get a text about, the latest gossip or 5 Facebook, updates in the space of a minute about all of this drama. All of these things. And I think sometimes we think, well, it's good to be distracted by that stuff. But it's no small crime because it takes 25 minutes for your brain, when it's interrupted, to recover and get back to the same level of focus. 25 minutes. Also, make no mistake that your attention is limited. When it's soaked up by the trivial, there is nothing left to give to what's important. So we've all been affected by attention thieves, but also we are all guilty of being attention thieves, myself included. And I think it's a challenge when we unconsciously thieve from the people that we love the most. And in this case, it's our children. If you want to know how attention works best, check out a 1 or 2-year-old in a pram. They are leaning forward, they are looking up to the sky, the trees. They are so immersed in seeing what's going on in the present moment. But there's a trend over the last 5 years that's about, you're going to fall out of that stroller, have an iPad. You're going to get bored standing in this line, play on my phone. You're going to fight with your sister, let's get the DVD player happening in the car. And I want to be clear that I'm not saying that on the way out we need to chuck out all of our technological devices, because that absolutely is not the answer. But the question we need to ask ourselves is, who is the master and who is the servant? Because when you're a servant to technology, the first thing that goes is your impulse control. First thing that goes is your ability to make choices around what you pay attention to. The other reason I don't want you to sign up for the digital detox or, the screen-free night is because technology isn't actually the biggest problem here. In a lot of ways, we need to thank technology because it's highlighted a bigger problem. And that is that the biggest assailants of attention actually lie within, or what we call space invaders. We know attention loves space. You get ideas when you stop thinking, when you go out into nature, you solve the problems that you've been struggling with for months. But we now have 70,000 thoughts a day, 12,000 internal conversations, and most of them aren't that nice. And again, we don't need to read the research because we've already experienced, or we know someone who's experienced those mornings where the first thought when they wake up is, what day is it and what do I need to do? And they're constantly going through the to-do list. You jump in the shower, you're rehearsing the conversation that you're going to have a little bit later on. You're getting changed and you're rerunning the thing that someone said to you yesterday, how you're going to respond. All of these thoughts just in the first hour of the day. We're addicted to junk thoughts, to the dopamine hit that we get from being busy, the false sense of security that we get through working through all these plans in our head that are never going to happen, all of these junk thoughts. And that's not even mentioning the fears that are circling in our mind that drive a lot of our actions. So many that Martina Sheehan and I wrote a book on them. Some of you may have grabbed it, Wired for Life. We're worried about getting things wrong. We're worried about failing. We are so worried about uncertainty that we're creating all these elaborate plans in our head. We don't want to stand out. We don't want to get rejected. We don't want to miss out. All of these things taking up such pure and vital space that we really need to nurture. Because the issue when our attention is focused on devices, when it's focused in this internal world of activity, there's a problem. Because what you focus on grows. Attention breathes light, real light and life into your thoughts. And if you focus on things like, how can I make a difference? How can I help others? How can I use my strengths? Attention will give you a glorious path to a really fulfilled life. But if you're focusing on self-doubt, why you're not good enough, all of these fears that will never come to pass, attention will lead you down a very, very negative path because what you focus on grows. We've heard about that in neuroplasticity today already. Also, when your attention is captured by devices or your internal thoughts, you are withholding it from the things that really matter. And a lot of the time, that's the people right in front of you. Anne's already shown the scans of what it looks like for a child when they have been withheld attention, when they have been neglected. But you don't even need to see brain scans because you know that when you feel ignored, it hurts. Withholding attention's not a neutral act. When we withhold attention, it's a destructive act on the other person. But it's also destructive for ourselves because when we drag our attention from one thing to the next, when we multitask, when we lead it down dark paths, we're just frittering it away. And that's why we're losing this thread that connects us to life. It's becoming frittered. It's becoming frayed. We're losing connection. It's all getting very serious, so I thought I'd show you a pair of my shoes. And the reason I want to show you these and be very materialistic for a moment is because they've only been seen in public once, because they are so precious to me, I don't want to wear them. So I keep them in a box. I know this sounds ridiculous, stay with me. I keep them in a box, out of the sun, in a nice bag. I take them out, I clean them. I admire them. And maybe it's not shoes for you. Maybe it's not stilettos. If you're a man, I'm hoping it's not stilettos. But maybe it's golf clubs. Or maybe it's your prayer beads. Or maybe it's your wine collection. How many times do we actually take better care of these physical objects than we do our attention? How many times do we even think about, and I don't for a moment want you to lock your attention away in a box at the bottom of the cupboard, because this world needs your attention. But how many times do we even think about giving it a rest, not exposing it to things that are not going to be good for it? How many times do we really think about how precious that resource is and therefore what choices we should be making around it? We've talked about this today, yesterday already. The most important skill over the next 5 years, the next 2 years, is that we need to learn the skill of bringing attention back to where it belongs. This is the most important skill for school students, but for all of us at every age. Because if we fiddle around with things like curriculum, there's no point doing that if we can't even get people to pay attention. It's the same in organisations. We can fiddle around with all of this stuff. But if we don't get our leaders and our people paying attention, we don't have a lot to work with. So, where's our attention supposed to be? I think we all know this answer, and we've all heard this beautiful verse. Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, today is a gift. That's why they call it the present. The present is a gift. Attention is the most powerful gift that you can give to others, but also that you can give to yourself. So again, before you rush off to commit to a cave or meditation, might I suggest that you just take one moment? One moment to give full attention to someone else. So next time you're typing at the computer, someone comes and talks to you and you normally answer, stop, pause, face them, give full attention. Give attention to yourself. That next time you are running yourself ragged, in fact, you should be doing this every day. Stopping, checking in with yourself, taking a breath, taking a pause, asking yourself what you need. And to also give one moment each day to what we call the World Attention Bank. Attention's like the currency of care. And our role as people is to keep that flowing. Even when you give the gift of attention to a stranger, you keep that flowing nicely around the world. So just take one moment, because my firm belief is that one moment can save a relationship. It can nurture a child. It can reveal an idea. It can tame a busy mind. I really believe that one moment a day committed by all of us could change the world. So that's what I ask from you, just one moment, please.